He has experience handling projects financing in Peru, including the construction of Sierra Norte Tramo 2 toll road project and the Gasoducto Sur Peruano project, and with Citibank and Banco Santander, secure credit facility to Grupo Embotellador ATIC. So now I would like to turn the program over to our moderator, Augusto, who will guide our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria Rosa. Good afternoon to everyone. Joining, first, I think I'm going to introduce the panel that we have here today. The first person that will speak today will be Alexander Mueller, who is the head economist of the Andean region, Central Bank and Caribbean at the Global Research Team of Bank of America. Previously, he was the vice president of macro research covering Mexico and Peru at the Brazilian bank Itaú BBA. And before that, an economist and FX strategist at BTG Pactual, Chile. Alexander has a master's degree in public administration from Columbia University and a BA in economics from the Universidad de Lima in Peru. Today also joining me, we have Bernardo Muñoz. Bernardo is the director of the Trade Commission of Peru in New York. For the past 9 years, he was director of the Trade Commission of Peru in the Peruvian Embassy in Spain and in Morocco. And before that, he was deputy director of commercial intelligence in the Peruvian Tourism Export and Promotion Commission, PromPeru. Before that, he was manager of agro exports in PromPex. Bernardo holds a master's degree and a bachelor's degree in industrial mechanical engineer from the Technical University of Berlin, and additional studies in marketing, logistics, and administration from the same university. Finally, we also have today Walter Vizarreta, who is PromPeru's director for the promotion of business investment. Walter was previously the marketing and image manager from Peru and created, among others things, the Peru tourism brand. Also at PromPeru, he was the deputy director of tourism intelligence and planning and has managed projects relating to the market research, big data, predictive analytics, artificial intelligence, design thinking, and agile methodologies. He has implemented consulting projects for MINCETUR, the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Tourism of Peru, and the Municipality of Lima. Walter has an MBA in marketing from the University of Texas and a BA from the Universidad del Pacífico. So welcome, Alexander, Bernardo, and Walter. So first, today, as you have seen in the agenda, we'll hear a few words. The way this webinar is going to be conducted is each Alexander, Bernardo, and Walter will do an introduction for 10 minutes, and then we will open the floor for questions. So Alexander, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to meet virtually with you today at the Andean American Association's event. My remarks will be divided in 3 parts. First, I will provide Bank of America's outlook for the Peruvian economy, mainly GDP, given time limitations. We can discuss other variables such as exchange rate and interest rates during the Q&A if you're interested. Second, I want to talk a bit about the structural strengths of this economy, considering that the title of today's event is Opportunities in Peru. And third, the issue of withdrawals from the pension system, which is a very worrisome development that is being debated across Latin America, and especially in Peru. On the economic outlook, I would start by saying that GDP is clearly rebounding in a V-shaped pattern from very depressed levels observed in the second quarter. Notably, in Q2, no economy in Latin America, with the exception of Panama and Venezuela, fell more than Peru, whose GDP was down by 30% year over year. That result was truly shocking. And in retrospect, I think nobody expected Peru to fall that much, considering that it has a stronger and more stable economy than the vast majority countries in Latin America. That is precisely why Peru has the second best credit rating in the region, only below Chile. And yet the economic collapse was massive. So massive, in fact, that Peru contracted more than countries like Ecuador, which had a far worse combination of shocks. Ecuador had a very severe COVID mortality rates, the oil shock, they defaulted in April, and contractionary macroeconomic policies, both fiscal and monetary, because of dollarization and the appreciation of the US dollar. And yet, Peru's GDP contraction in Q2 almost tripled the contraction recorded in Ecuador, minus 30% versus minus 12%. Now, why? That's the question. And the answer is that the shock that dominates economic activity in 2020 by far is the lockdown or the virus, if we want to think about the root cause. But why the Peruvian economy was so vulnerable to the lockdown? There are three reasons, in my view. The most obvious, the one that all Peruvian analysts argue, and I'm sure you have heard about this before, is informality. And let me give you some hard statistics on this matter. In Chile, according to the Statistics Institute, labor informality is around 25%. Colombia is 45%. Brazil and Argentina are close to 50%. Mexico is 55%. And Peru is around 70%. So what this means is that the trade-off of staying at home for the Peruvian people is worse for way too many of them. I mean, if they stay at home, they basically starve because they don't have a formal employer who pays them if they miss work, or sometimes even access to Social Security. And the outcome, of course, is that this makes people less willing to respect the lockdown. The second reason is the weak social safety net. Peru has a very strong fiscal position, again, only surpassed by Chile at the LATAM level. But the flip side of that is that this is also a country that invests very little in social services, including the health system and Social Security overall. For example, there is no unemployment insurance in Peru. That is the complete opposite of countries like Costa Rica and Uruguay, which have robust social safety nets and were better prepared to defend their populations against the pandemic. And the third reason, less well known, I think, is the fact that Lima is the second most populated city in the world that is built in a desert, after El Cairo in Egypt. And that, coupled with the high economic centralization, Lima is half of Peru's GDP, caused a deep contraction in the capital. The point is that there's always been an issue with water supply in Lima, especially for the people who live in the shanty towns in the hills that surround the city. So irrespective of the lockdown, people still needed to come out of their houses to get water. That's what I think. Water is delivered in trucks down the hills. So all these reasons, I think it's important to go over them because they explain why the Peruvian contraction has been so severe in 2020. Now, that's the first point. Since the second quarter, however, economic activity has shown an impressive pickup. By August, the latest data point, monthly GDP proxy was only down 9.8% year over year. Remember that I said that in the second quarter, it was down 30% year over year. And incoming data, such as cement consumption, domestic VAT collections, non-traditional manufacturing exports, auto sales, electricity production, credit to firms, among other indicators, point to a further recovery. We highlight in particular the fact that cement consumption was up by 9.7% year over year in September. This, coupled with a smaller contraction in public investment, means that the construction sector likely posted positive growth in September for the first time since February, and after falling 90% year over year in April. That, in our view, is a major sign of a V-shaped recovery. So even though the contraction of the Peruvian economy is highly likely to be in the double digits in 2020, significantly worse than the Latin American region as a whole, for which we forecast a GDP contraction of only 8%, this V-shaped pickup that I'm talking about implies that there will be a very big rebound next year. In fact, we forecast that Peru's GDP will grow by 9.8% in 2021, not very different from the forecasts of the central bank and the Ministry of Finance, which are 11% and 10% respectively. Now, there are good reasons for the rebound, and they are beyond a simple statistical base effect. First of all, you have the macroeconomic policy response, which has been is huge. I mean, the central bank in Peru, they have lowered interest rates to 0.25%, the lowest in emerging markets and in Latin America. And this is only possible because there is a central bank with very strong credibility. The central bank, in addition, they have also increased the money supply big time, I mean, by a lot, not only with the repos, the Reactiva Peru, which is around 8 percentage points of GDP, but also through other repo operations that pump in liquidity into the economy. This is very important to boost a credit. Credit is growing double digit, largely because of Reactiva Peru. What is growing more is credit to firms, obviously. Credit to households is slowing down, but still, I want to highlight that this strong monetary policy response is being critical to support the economy and will contribute to the recovery. Now, on the fiscal side, there's also been a big effort, but I would say that the stimulus will be more felt in 2021 than in 2020. Basically because expenditures are not growing very much. Expenditures, primary expenditures, if we exclude the interest, if you compare January-September 2020 with January-September 2019, they're only growing 4%. So that is actually quite small. I mean, in real terms, it's a small growth. So the government has not been very successful at pumping in the fiscal stimulus yet, but this has happened in the past. And I think that in 2021, the fiscal stimulus will be felt with more strength. In any case, the plan is quite large and it should help the economy. What they are doing on the quasi-fiscal side, I also think is very important. The Reactiva Peru guarantees to credit, which is something that other governments in the region, like Chile, like Colombia, like Dominican Republic, are also doing. I think that's very important to preserve the productive tissue in the economy. If this program didn't exist, there would be much more bankruptcies and much more job losses and much more permanent damage to the economy. So I think this is also a very smart policy that will be positive for the recovery to prevent what economists call hysteresis effects. Now, second reason, in addition to macroeconomic policy, I think that the terms of trade, which historically are very correlated to growth, the terms of trade, I mean, the ratio between export prices to import prices, will move in a direction that is positive for Peru. Remember that in contrast with Chile, which is almost completely reliant on copper, Peru's mining are more diversified. So copper is like 35% of exports. Gold is like 18% last year. So gold is also pretty important. The gold prices have increased a lot. Copper prices will also likely increase in 2021. And this increase in the terms of trade is going to help the economy. We're pretty sure about that. And finally, I would say, I mean, it's very to tell, and at Bank of America, we never do forecasts about elections. I want to emphasize that. But looking at the polls in Peru, I mean, the candidates that are leading the presidential polls, I think, what we want to highlight is that we think there will be economic policy continuity in Peru. And if that is the case, then private investment should pick up in the second half of 2021. So that's why we expect the economy to pick up next year. Now I want to move to the structural strengths, but I think I'm running out of time, Augusto. I think I have already spoken for 10 minutes. I don't know if I can speak then in the Q&A, or shall I continue? Please, you tell me.
Why don't you go for, I mean, if you want to finish this matter, or do you have a couple more things you said you want to mention?
Sure. Let me be very brief. I mean, I think I can do this in couple more minutes. So I want to talk about the structural strengths of the economy, because, you know, the event here is called Opportunities in Peru. And I want to explain to the audience why this economy has had very strong economic performance over the past decades. And in particular, the economy has been very successful at attracting foreign direct investment. If we look at the average of foreign direct investment in Peru, since 1990, you will see that it's 4% of GDP. That's quite a large amount. I mean, on relative terms, there's only 3 countries I would say that have attracted more. That's Chile, Panama, and Costa Rica. And the reason why Peru attracts foreign investment, I think it's no coincidence. There's specific reasons for this, and I would say that the constitution in Peru that was approved in 1993 offers very strong protection to private property. In fact, it has a provision of non-discrimination to foreign investors, which says that foreign direct investment must be treated exactly as domestic investment. The Chileans and the Mexicans, they also have this provision, but in the FTAs, in the free trade agreements. For Peru to have it in the mother of all laws, I think it's very important to boost investment. But it's not only that, you have also in the Constitution a provision of inviolability of private property, intangibilidad de la propiedad privada, and provision to modify private contracts. And if we think about expropriations in Peru, other than expropriations like purchasing terrains for infrastructure projects, which all countries do that, I would say there's not a single example of an expropriation of a firm in Peru since the 1980s, when the government nationalized the banks. I mean, if we think about it, the closer we can get to an expropriation in Peru, perhaps is the renegotiation of the Camisea natural gas contract in 2011, or perhaps what happened just now with the law in Congress that canceled the highway toll payments or allowed the withdrawals from the pension system. But and you can debate if that is an expropriation or not. But I want to say also this, emphasize that the protection of private property is something very much embedded in the Constitution. Moreover, you have the subsidiarity principle, the famous Article 60, which says that the government should not intervene in sectors where the private sector can provide the goods and services. And this, I think it's resembled in the fact that Peru has almost large state-owned enterprises. The largest one is PetroPeru, and it's a tiny fraction compared to Ecopetrol and Petrobras and the large Latin American oil companies. And the fact that there's no a presence of the government in the economy limits the fiscal risks. It also limits the distortion in the markets, because the government firms, they distort the markets, for example, by cheaper financing in the case of banks. So I think that's also a pillar of the Peruvian economy. And lastly, there's more things, but I want to cut here. The Constitution also has a prohibition to monetize the fiscal deficit. Like it will not be like in Argentina, where the central bank monetizes the fiscal deficit. That cannot happen in Peru because the Constitution says it cannot happen. Now, you might wonder, why is this so important for the business sector? Well, it's very important because it means that inflation will not be rampant, and inflation is very much under control in Peru. And having stable inflation makes it easier for firms to plan, and it's also positive for the population because the wages are not diluted. Now that's the Constitution. Then very briefly, another thing I think why Peru can grow a lot in the future is the fact of income convergence. Peru still has a low GDP per capita. We see Peru GDP per capita, which is $7,000 per capita, compared to Latin America and Caribbean is like 10,000. Latin America alone is a bit above too. So what I want to say is that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in the economy still. Outside of Lima, there's a lot of lack of services in the cities, in the provinces. So there's a lot of space for investment opportunities that is reflected in the GDP per capita. Also in the fact that the economy is informal. Remember that you can also measure GDP as the contributions of the factors of production. So wages are also part of GDP. If you move all those people out of informality, I mentioned there's 70% of the workforce in informality, that can boost GDP. It's another way to argue that there's space to grow. Second and third, yeah, and I finish here. There's a $50 billion mining investment pipeline, which my colleagues at PromPeru can speak more about this. $50 billion is more than 20% of GDP. You might say, oh, some of these projects at the end, they don't materialize, like Minascong and Tia Maria and a few other examples, but some actually do. And we have been seeing these waves of mining projects coming on stream and boosting the economy. It's not, what I want to say is, it's not a fairy tale. This does happen. It has happened many times since the 90s. And lastly, I want also to mention the revolution that is going on in the Peruvian coast with the agriculture. 15 years ago, Peru exported just a couple $1 million of non-traditional manufactured agricultural exports. Now it's exporting almost $7 billion. And from scratch, Peru is now is the world's largest exporter of berries, a third of avocados, fifth of grapes, and that has happened in a period of 15 years. These large irrigation projects that were paralyzed by the Odebrecht scandal, once those materialize, it's going to expand the agricultural frontier. And I think it's going to be very positive for the growth prospects. Now, the negative side of the story is about the pension system. I think that can hurt potential growth and offset these positive aspects that I'm mentioning. I will leave it here and perhaps I'll answer the questions on the pension system in the QA. Sorry for extending this much. Thank you, Augusto.
No problem, Alexander. It was really, really informative and encouraging for all of us that want to see Peru grow. So now it's the turn of Bernardo Munoz. Bernardo, to you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. We would like to thank the Peruvian American Association for this opportunity, and on behalf of Mr. Luis Torres, Executive President of PromPeru, we would like to apologize for him not being able to be with us today. It is very interesting to talk after Alexander, because we have nothing to say. Everything is already explained, so to say. But what we like to give you is some information of current business opportunities based on us. But we would like to explain a little bit more based on who we are. PromPeru is a government promotion agency for export, tourism, and now it's going to be investment. Walter is going to explain that in more detail, but only that you understand. It is a technical agency responsible for the strategies and for promoting activities. So to understand that is, we work under a 5-year master plan. And we describe, for example, 2 big groups. That's the trade, PENS, Plan Nacional de Exportaciones, and PENTUR, Plan Nacional de Turismo, for tourism. The master plan of investment will come soon. I hope so, Walter. So it's your responsibility. That's a good homework for you. So we do belong to the Peruvian Ministry of Foreign Trade and Tourism. And our trade commission offices of Peru, we are PromPeru in the US. And part of the Peruvian diplomat mission, only so that you understand. So we work together with the embassy in Washington, D.C., and their ambassador, De Sela, and we are located in 4 cities. We are in states, California, Texas, Florida, and New York. And here in New York, we work closely with the General Consulate under Ambassador Landaveri, that we work very good together. We all are your Peruvian business partners in the US. That's what we want to share with you. Our aim is for you to have Peru in your mind when you're planning to do international business. For us, business is a double-side highway. Let me explain that. We want to increase commerce. That means we think in selling, we think in buying, we think in investing, we think in joint ventures and strategic alliances that will benefit both countries. So that it's not only that we want to sell something, so we're willing to do some business with you, we're willing to buy things, and that's why we would like to explain to you all the different opportunities that we have, so you can think as well doing business with us. When we talk about Peru, okay, Alexander just explained us a little bit, but let me see what has happened so you understand better why we will have these results. All this information is pre-COVID. Peru has grown steadily for more than 20 years, you know? And as Alexander explained, you know, our GDP has grown from 50 to 212 billion. We have our export has been growing from 6 billion to 45 billion, talking in the last 15, 20 years. Peru has one of the lowest inflation rate in all the region and has the lowest public debt. That is as well very interesting, no? And one of the highest international reserves and most stable currency in the region. Walter will explain you more or less in detail, but these are things that we have to understand. Why are we in this position and why we think we have a lot of opportunities to share with you, no? The poverty rate has been reduced from 60 to 20%, and the middle class expand to more or less a 50% of the population. Means that growth has had a direct social impact. And that is very important for us to understand all the things that we work together. 96% of the trade is covered with free trade agreements. Alexander mentioned it before as well, no? So that's why our business long-term is very clear. So everyone wants to do business with us. Definitely, the pandemic has changed all the scenario, no? But we think that we have solid conditions for a fast recuperation, as just Alexander mentioned us, no? So Peru offers business opportunities in most sectors, no? Only to reduce the amount of things that we want to share with you because of the time, no? The gap in infrastructure is more than 90 billion, okay? In transport, energy, telecommunication, water industry, health, education, and different sectors. So it's a lot of things to do, as Alexander mentioned this before. We would like to comment as well, that's very important, that 70% of the investment in our country comes from the private sector. So if you see what has happened in the past, you will see that always the private sector was there, which changed with different governments. And that's why it's a policy, it's a country policy to keep on with the same way of working with the private sector and the public sector. So there are several businesses that I would like to mention, and Alexander made this as well. There are over 12 ongoing projects in the mining industry. Only there we have about $40 billion investment. Let's talk about PromPeru. It's a government agency that promotes public-private association, PPAs. They have currently 50 projects for about 11 billion. So that's a lot to do as well. The hotel industry nowadays is somehow complicated, so we should wait for better times. But we have currently 28 projects for 4 billion. As well comes the reconstruction of northern Peru, 2 billion. And I would like to extend a little bit in this point, because this is a new way of making business. We have a G2G agreement with different government-to-government agreements. For example, the reconstruction of the North works with the United Kingdom government. But we have as well a G2G with the French government for hospitals. And we do the same. We have a G2G with the Korean for airports. So this is as well something interesting for the people, for the government of the USA, that we could do G2G projects based on all the opportunities that we have, no? We have as well the Lima subway, line 3 and 4. We're going to talk about 6 to 6 billion. So these are a lot of opportunities, no? But I would like to share another point that is interesting for you. We talk about obras por impuestos, work for taxes. This is a new tool that has been implemented to promote public projects to be executed by private sector in exchange of tax payment. So this is as well interesting. It's not so well used, but it's a very good alternative if you want to do some business. And last but not least, I would like to extend and go a lot with details concerning what Alexander explained to us before. We're talking about irrigation. We're talking about agribusiness, agri-exports. We have non-irrigation projects. And this is exactly what you just mentioned, Alexander, before. 20 years ago, Peru agri-export was 400 million. Nowadays, we're talking about 7 billion in this very short time. But this happens only in 200,000 hectares. And these new non-irrigation projects will increase this area, this extension in more or less 400,000 hectares. So that means for us, government and country, we want to double our agri-exports. As he mentioned before, we are #1 exporters in quinoa, fresh asparagus, blueberries, second in avocados, mandarins, third in paprika, and he explained that before. But I would like to talk about an experience on why agribusiness is going to be very interesting for every investor. 5 years ago, nobody mentioned blueberries as a part of the Peruvian exports. Today, we are #1 exporter in the world. So I think this is very interesting to understand. So that's why it's important to see us as a potential partner for new businesses. So we are sure that Peru will be the country that will have the highest growth, as we just explained, Alexander, before, in the region. So after these difficult times. So we are sure that we will be the right partner. So we will like that Peru is in your mind and be your business partners in the future projects. So if you have any questions, please, we are available and we know where we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bernardo. So now is the turn of Walter Bizarreta.
Well, thank you very much, Augusto. I would like to share my screen with you. I don't know, Laurie, you could help me. Give me a second, please. I want to be sure that you can see. Can you see my screen? Yes,
yes.
You appreciate it. Can
Yep.
you hear me well? Okay. Well, thank you very much again for this great opportunity to the Peruvian and Andean Chamber. It's no doubt going to be very productive to us to share with you specifically what we have, the information we have in the new investment promotion division. Bernardo explained what basically was created from Peru in order to contribute to increase foreign direct investment, particularly in productive sectors. I'm going to start explaining this specifically. Just give me a second because I want to modify here. Okay, basically we encourage the promotion, attraction, retention, and expansion of foreign direct investment in greenfield projects, partnerships, or acquisitions for the generations of goods and services domestically and abroad. So preferably, we are going to focus in tourism and trade, but not exclusively. So we could identify important sectors such as retail or high-tech. High-tech is one of our prioritized sectors, and retail is one of our potential sectors, whenever we could contribute to generate more foreign direct investment. Okay, we are going to take advantage of the network we have with trade offices around the world. Bernardo mentioned that he's in New York, but we have 30 international offices, trade offices, but the scope is around 50 countries. So it's a good scope. It's a good reach. And in addition to it, we have important offices, regional offices inside our country that are going to interact with Peruvian potential partners with projects. So this is the match we want to create. Well, the investment promotion system in Peru consists of two main institutions here, ProInversión, described in detail by Bernardo. They are concentrated on promoting investment specifically for public services and public infrastructure. The main mechanism is public-private associations. In PromPeru, we are going to contribute to generate more foreign direct investment, but attracting direct business investment for productive sectors. I'm going to explain later the sectors we have prioritized and those with potential we want to foster to. Through projects that will preferentially increase, as I said before, tourism and trade supply. Our clients, current and potential investors, public and private associations, institutions with projects, and intermediaries too, such as brokers and developers. Well, some of the reasons, the majority of them already mentioned by Alexander and Bernardo, but it's a country you can trust, economic stability, the lowest financial risk in Latin America, according to important institutions like JP Morgan. And talent people, yes, human resources was mentioned before too. Okay, in the rank World Talent Index, we're in an excellent position above other countries, and we have invested a lot in education. We have increased our investment in education and also private investment, specifically in new schools, in universities in Peru. We are open here, an open market in innovation. Here you see we have already mentioned in Peru has 22 free trade agreements in force right now, with which outcomes 89%, close to 90 of our exports in 2019. Well, but it's an excellent place to live too. Okay, if you decide to come here to establish a company, okay, you will see that according to Country Track, the reputation is high. It's really, really high. We occupy top positions, always between top position and top 3 positions things during the last 5 years. Well, our brand, country brand, has contributed a lot, and it was particularly emphasis for an improvement in the perceived quality of life we offer in our country. And obviously, you recognize this, I'm sure, the best culinary destination, okay, according to different rankings specifically for that. Those aspects really important when considering establishing a company, because the quality of life for potential, companies' employees is important too. Well, we already mentioned the sustained growth in GDP during the last 10 years above world and regional average. This entrepreneurial attitude specifically, generating a new important interest in startups, Peruvian companies, okay, looking for potential partners abroad. Interest of potential partners already contacted us to see the possibility of entering Peru and offer their services, because now we have improved substantially interconnection. You can see here it's a boom in Peru in the use of startup products and services, a high increase in penetration for online application, smartphones, and internet. Okay, and the least volatile currency in the region. And you will see, I have some charts to demonstrate this. Well, being conservative, yes, we had a decrease in our GDP this year due to pandemic, but look at this, 7%, very conservative. And I mentioned a really more optimistic figure, but considering this very conservative, compare this with other countries. So expectations are really good to recover the growth we had before. And again, look at the stability of our currency compared to other countries. According to specialists in our country, economists, they say that it's as stable as, or even more stable as Europe. Okay, and when we issue market bonds, country bonds, well, you can see here, okay, this is just a way to reflect, okay, the confidence in what we do. The country risk permits us to obviously obtain low, really interest rate. What have we done specifically talking about sectors? So we collected information with our international trade offices about interest of potential investors in some sectors in Peru. After collecting this information, we did a match with our Peruvian association partners. They work with us. So we have meetings every week to see the events and the strategies and the tactics we are going to do to increase foreign direct investment. And then we identify the projects we had with them specifically. Now I'm going to explain about 2 modalities we have to identify projects to invest in our country. And after doing this match, we obtain these 6 sectors. Okay, prioritize food industry, tourism, textile sector, high technology, manufacture, fishing for human consumption. Well, we have great expectations about renewable energy, forestry, metalworking, retail, real estate. Maybe in the future, after collecting more information, we could convert one of these subsectors among the top main sectors we have identified before. Okay, but regardless of the sector, the company's interest, potential investors' interest, we are going to submit these services. We are going to give information, scientific information, technical information we are going to generate for these sectors. We are going to contribute to facilitate. We have a mission for next year from the European owners interested in investing in agriculture specifically, and we have facilitated the contact with different institutions inside Peru, private and public institutions and associations. Technical assistance and support about the legal framework, about incentives, all detailed information about the sectors they select, and the aftercare specifically for those companies already investing in Peru. What we do, we have different mechanisms. PromPeru platforms could be contacting directly our trade offices abroad, could be through our portal, or even directly like events like this. Okay, after we check the requirement in information or services, we start collecting the information, or we identify the services to be provided. We submit the services, and after that, we verify that all these required information and services are provided in the right way with a follow-up. Well, as I said before, we have two modalities to to offer this investment projects portfolio to our potential investors. Modality one, Peruvian companies with investment projects, which means potential partners for, in this specific case, US companies. We receive constant support from the most important Peruvian associations, and they have Peruvian companies interested in networking with potential investors. Here, they represent the top 100 Peruvian companies considering annual revenues and profits. We have scale investment projects, minimum 900 million and over for greenfield and expansion projects. These are the associations, obviously focus in different sectors here in our country. AGAP, ADEX, CATUR, CCL, COMPIEP, COMEX, S, and I. Okay, all of them with projects in the prioritized and potential sectors. Detailed information about investment projects through a direct contact with these Peruvian companies. They prefer to exchange the information, detailed information, only when interacting with potential investors. Modality two, here we have collected investment projects records. So some companies have decided to make this information available and open, okay, in our prioritized sectors. And just to give you an example, this is a work in progress. This is what we have so far. And we started to operate in August 13th. So imagine the different projects. We have started to collect around 80 projects already identified, and we are sure that we are going to increase this list substantially during the next month. Okay, 5 projects for the food industry, 20 projects for the tourism industry, okay, 10 projects for manufacture, 10 projects for textile sectors, 2 important and interesting big scale projects for fishing for human consumption, and 20 particularly startups companies for high technology. We could submit this information, it's available, and also potential sectors too, renewable energy, forest industry, and real estate. Okay, how to have access to this information? Well, different mechanisms, but we would like to take advantage of this great opportunity to invite you to participate in a forum we are going to do in December the 2nd and 3rd. You are going to have the chance. It's completely open. I'm going to give you the contact information in next slide. So you are going to have the chance to attend lectures about these sectors with technical information, with experts talking about that, and a space for networking, where you are going to have the chance to interact with these Peruvian companies and to discuss about these projects we have on hand. We look forward to seeing you. If you want to get more information about the services, about the sectors, all the technical details, or to get contact with these Peruvian companies and their projects, here I'm including the information of my Deputy Director of Investment Promotion, Maria Sol Velázquez, and his email. Okay, and we hope to see you soon. What we are going to elaborate right now, it's a community of current and potential investors and always experts that are going to be eager to share this information with you. And now I'm more than happy to take your questions when you deem convenient. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much, Walter. And I think it's been super interesting, and it's very exciting that PromPeru has created this investment promotion division, which certainly would foster, with the clear intention of fostering the foreign direct investment. So we have a few questions from the audience, and let me take them as in the order of the panelists presented their views on the opportunities for investment in Peru. So I think the first two that I have are for Alexander. One is, how long do you think it will take for Peru's GDP to recover from the downturn due to COVID?
Sure. So at Bank of America, right now, we only have forecasts until 2021, where we usually publish our scenarios in November. So we are still working on 2022 and 2023. But let me tell you that the government, in the medium-term fiscal framework that they published in August, they are saying that the level of GDP that was observed in 2019, before the pandemic, will be recovered by 2022. Not next year, but in 2022. And I think that that assumption is reasonable. Next year, for sure, I would say the economy will be close to growing double digits. The central bank is saying 11%. I don't think it's an exaggeration based on the drivers that I discussed in my previous speech. So my answer would be that if not in 2022, which I think it's reasonable to think, then for sure early 2023.
Great. Thank you very much, Alexander. Bernardo, maybe you can take this one. So, and Cesar Guerrero in the audience asked if you could tell us about the political situation in the country and what is the effect in business. Bernardo, you're on mute. Bernardo, you are on mute. I think he doesn't realize.
Now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, what we know is that we will have in March next year elections. But what concerns about what's going to happen with the business on the future of the country, expressed before. The past 20 years, we have had different situations. And as I told you before, 70% of all the investment is a private sector. And Alexander explained as well before, the people are, in September, the numbers are changing, October, the numbers are changing. So I think that it will be somehow slow growth, but I'm sure that we will recover in a very short time. As 70% of the economy is informal, so as soon as the people start moving and start having the opportunity to start doing business, things will be changed very fast. So therefore, we do assume that we have very positive opportunities in a very short term. So therefore, we think that it's going to happen very fast. So it's going to be very positive.
Right. So we have presidential and congressional elections next March, a new president and Congress taking over on July, if I'm not mistaken. And I think what I'm hearing from you is that the hope is that will probably finally give us an stability to continue growing and to take advantage of this potential recovery that Alexander has mentioned, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, yes, let's hope for the best. That technical teams are working as hard as we can see from Walter's presentation. And Walter, maybe this one is for you. One person in the audience asked about how can technology be a key development sector, or whether technology can be a key development sector for Peru. And I'll take the next question, but that's one of the questions that Alessandro Bovio asks.
Okay. Well, in talking about specifically high tech, we identified this strategic sector due to our conversation with these Peruvian associations. So they said to reactivate, we need to bet on transform technology. So we need to increase in improving our processes, improving the way we work, okay, everything related to operations. So it's a great opportunity for companies interested in office to offer digital services. So demand is going to be. But aside from that, you want to do something different in high tech, like for example, applications or services to end users. As I said before, the increase in internet penetration, smartphones, and all the different devices is impressive. I was checking some figures we have collected specifically for this sector, and you can see that in all these important metrics, we occupy the top 5 positions in Latin America. Okay, so it's a great demand. And as Bernardo mentioned, the middle level class and upper middle level class, we're talking about 50% of the population. We are 32 million people here in Peru. And you know, as an anecdote, every time, you know, we have a contest, a competition about gastronomy or whatever, or Machu Picchu, you know that we participate a lot. So a lot of the use of different internet tools is huge in Peru. That's why we receive, I prefer not to mention the country, but interest from one international country, specific startups, asking for information, the legal requirements, the facilities that we have. And it's interesting because in this way, we are going to contribute to generate these opportunities between both. We have recently decided to invest $20 million specifically for new startup companies, in high tech. Okay, from the government, there is strong support for this kind of, as well as from the private sector, incubators in schools. So this is growing in an impressive way. And as you can see, our innovative companies Peruvian companies are being recognized. So I would invite people interested in that. If they want in the audience to contact me, I could give you more detailed information about these metrics and these great opportunities for high tech. As I said before, with end users and Peruvian companies demanding digital services as well.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And certainly what we are seeing in terms of here at Shearman, in terms of interest of venture capital firms investing in Peru, and the development of venture capital funds in Peru, including having the development Banco FIDE joining forces to provide line of credit to entrepreneurs. That's certainly a key development. In terms of the, and this question is mine. I was interested, Walter. How do you decided that Peru promote these 5 sectors or 6 sectors that you mentioned, food, fishery, etc.? How do you pick those? Do you think Peru has a particular strength that could attract potential investors, opportunities? You know, what do you think?
I mentioned 2 sources, but I'm going to complement this with another source too. Our offices. Our trade offices abroad, as I said before, we have around 30 with a scope. They are not only one country, but 2 or more. So in this total scope is 50 countries. Okay, 50 countries. So they have been interacting with potential investors for a long period of time, not only during the last year. So some of our offices, you know, they have even a database of potential investors. So they have contacted these investors before. So doing this mechanism, they could identify the sectors of interest for these potential investors. So I would summarize this: demand analysis, source 1. And then source 2, as you can see, we work with the top 7 Peruvian associations, the biggest companies in Peru. So we check with them the projects they have. Okay, and we decided to say to a match, because it could be an interesting potential sector, but if we don't have projects specifically for that, if we don't have a supply for that, there will be a match. So we couldn't promote something like this. We need to promote something real, concrete. So that was something very important. But in addition to it, to get information, we obviously interact with our trade division. You know, we have 3 strategic divisions in PromPeru: tourism, trade, and now business investment. So we contacted to see if we were on the right way. Well, with tourism, no doubt, definitely. Tourism is a priority sector. But the other sectors, manufacture, fishing for consumption, okay, textile, all the industry food. So we obviously exchange information, and they were, you know, focusing on this specifically, okay, with an export orientation. So it's a good complement. And high tech, as I said before, specifically with this interaction, because digital services definitely are going to be demanded. So maybe that could change in the future. Well, probably we could include or exclude one, but the idea is that we compare this also with what is currently happening in our country with the GDP. I didn't have enough time. I wanted to respect the time I was assigned, but I have specific exhibits where you can see how these sectors are going to improve. One of them, tourism, because I don't know if you have had the chance to see, but we have launched an impressive campaign domestically, and we are going to do internationally. Just to give you an idea, in the US, in your country, we have the travel style report, and we have identified people with interested in visiting Peru. And you know, the number is 2 million US travelers interested in coming to Peru. How many do we get per year? Last year, previous to pandemic effect, 700,000. So look at the potential we have in that sector. That's why you see a lot of international hotels, restaurants trying to enter specifically to focus on international visitors, and it's an interesting demand. So we have conducted a forum specifically for tourism, and we had the chance to see the participation of more than 300 investors specifically for these sectors. And now we are going to organize one event in November 17th and 18th, focus on one sector, tourism specifically. So we are sure that the sectors are, well, aside from the fact, historical data, they have been growing. Okay, they are really well prepared. We have demand, we have technical information, we have special regulations, we have special incentives, and we also have real projects. So we are sure that this is going to have a great impact in contributing to get more foreign direct investment.
Thank you. Yeah, no, and certainly one thing that I don't recall if it was mentioned is the number of free trade agreements that Peru has
22
across the board, which really makes it a potential for a hub of exports, right? So it's really good. Okay, we're running out of time, but I think there's a couple more questions, and maybe Alexander, people are interested in the macro economic.
Excuse me, sorry, I wanted to follow up on something that Walter mentioned, because at Bank of America, we recently published a report of digitalization in Latin America. And I think that that matter is critical to explain how technology can be a boost for economic development. Something that we saw in the statistics is that in Peru, around 52% of the population, of the adult population, has access to the internet. And this divide, I mean, the people who don't have access, they are obviously in the highlands, in the Amazon. You know, the Peruvian coast, actually the people who live in the coast have GDP per capita levels similar to Chile. And the people who are in the highlands and the Amazon, they have GDP per capita levels similar to sub-Saharan Africa. So, and I remember in the last presidential speech, in the July 28, the president, he mentioned that soon they would approve a national policy for digital transformation. So I think that an easy win for the economy, something that they could do that could have massive spillover effects to boost GDP and to, you know, improve the living standards of the people, is bringing the digital services and, you know, access to internet, and bringing them to into that part of the economy, you know. So I think that's critical, and the government, I think they have that strategy. Also, super important, keep in mind that the Ministry of Finance has also been working in the electronic invoicing, the payment of taxes, to file and pay taxes. Back in 2014, the number of electronic invoices was 0. And in 2019, that number increased to 340,000. So that I also think is critical to tackle informality, because if the government has more clarity on who is paying taxes and who is not, they have more capacity to do the enforcement. So I think that aspect too, the digitalization of the government, not only including the tax collections through the electronic invoicing, but the government services in general, that also has a huge potential. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say on that.
Yeah, no, certainly the geography of Peru brings some challenges, but I think there are some creative solutions that are being implemented. I think as recent as last year, a company called Ergon Peru started developing or starting deploying, frankly, or bringing electricity to traditionally underserved areas by installing 130,000 solar kits panels with cable and LED lights for home, schools, and clinics. So it was certainly a creative solution that bring this small the electricity and a renewable source to these very remote places around the country. So maybe to close on a positive note, or on a little more of the projections, Alexander, what do you think for terms of the sectors that you expect will have bigger recoveries, whether the Nuevo Sol or the Peruvian currency will be affected or will continue being strong?
Sure. So about the breakdown of sectors, the winners, the losers, obviously the losers in 2020 has been the tourism sector, because the international borders were closed, the transport sector, particularly the airlines, and the services, because of the lockdown. People could not come out of their houses, so the services sectors have had a terrible year, I would say, with some exceptions. Of course, financial services are actually growing. But if we think about the permanent effect, I would say that the only sectors that in Peru perhaps will stay depressed for some time, I would say, is tourism, because it's contingent on the vaccine. If there is a vaccine and it's disseminated across the world, perhaps the tourism sector can recover fast. But I mean, as long as there is no vaccine and people are apprehensive to travel, the tourism in the world is not going to return to what it used to be in 2019. Now, thinking about the winners, I would say that next year we will see a big pickup in mining, because well, these two mines, the expansion of expansion of Toromocho, Mina Justa, that is coming on stream. Then you have Quellaveco for 2022. So mining, I think, will continue growing strongly. Mining in Peru is very competitive. If you look at the cash extraction cost for copper, I mean the cost structure of the firms in Peru is competitive, because you have a low prices for energy, for water, competitive price for labor. You have also a geographical advantage in terms of the open cast mining. In Peru, the mines are open cast, so it's not like they have to go very deep down in the soil to get the mineral. That's at least what the mining analysts at Bank of America say. So mining is very competitive, and I think we're still going to see some boost from there. Then I mentioned the agricultural exports. That is actually growing in 2020. It has continued growing despite of the pandemic, and I think that will remain the case in the future. As Bernardo said, if they get to do the irrigation projects, that would have a massive impact. And let me say something that I didn't mention before. So if we think about the G20, the group of the largest 20 economies in the world, the G20, if the G20 were defined by territory size, by the size of the territory, then Peru would be part of the G20, because Peru is the 20th largest country in the world. The fact of having a large territory, of course, that is an advantage to boost your agricultural production. If they do more hectares and you get some real boost there, I think it could be transformational for the economy. Brazil, Argentina, the food exporters of Latin America, they export much more than us, than Peru, and I think they can. There is a sector that has very positive prospects for the future. Now, the services sector, the retail, I don't think that it will remain depressed. In the question, I can see that our colleague Fabricio mentions the retail in parentheses next to the losers, but I really think that the retail will be a loser in 2021. You know what? Because the economy is picking up, and if the economy picks up, you will have an improvement in employment. Wages should also, I mean, the labor market traditionally, it always lags the recovery of GDP, but given that growth is going to pick up, I would say that will be conducive to an improvement in the labor market, credit is I mean, the banks in Peru are strong, despite of some laws that have been approved by Congress. I didn't mention that, but I think the banks are strong, and you'll see also access to credit for households. So I think that in the long term, the services in Peru, including the retail, they still have a lot of potential to grow in line with the expansion of the middle class. If the middle class continues to expand, and that goes in lockstep with the economy, then I think that for the future, the prospects for the services sectors are positive.
Okay. Thank you very much, Alexander. That's very interesting, and thank you, Walter and Bernardo. I turn it to you, Maria Rosa.
Augusto, one second.
Yeah, sure.
I make an error. Elections, Peruvians, will take place the 11th of April. Only to clarify, it was not March.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Augusto. Okay. Thank you very much to all the participants. It was really a very lively, and thank you for all your wonderful questions about the losers, the winners. It was just fantastic. So thank you so much. I also would like to thank Walter, Bernardo, Alex, and Augusto for meeting with us and exchanging views. It has been a pleasure and an honor to have you with us and to look together at Peru's future and to learn how to take advantage of the nation's opportunities. I would like to thank our hardworking association staff for making this event possible. Our Executive Secretary, Linda Calvet, our Program Officer, Lori Dominguez, and our designer, Isabella Peña. We have upcoming programs that I wanna let you know. Next Thursday, November the 12th, stay tuned and you can sign up on the invitation. We have the Andean American Associations will be hosting the Latin American Outlook 2021 with Jose Antonio Ocampo, who was a former World Bank president candidate for presidency. And then we will have Luis Oganes. He's the head of all emerging markets. He will be joining us from London, and he works for JP Morgan Chase. And we will have Brian Winter of America's Quarterly. So they will all look at the future of the region, and you can check your inbox. You got the invitation today, so you can check your inbox if you want to register for that. And the week after, the 19th, we will be having the Ambassador Ivona Baki for the Ecuadorian American Association, and she will be talking to us about the new accords that they have done with the US. So that would be also very, very interesting. And if you want to contact our organization, just look at the end of the invitation. You have a way to contact us if you would like to, maybe check for membership for the Peruvian American Association or the Andean American Association. So it has been a pleasure to have you today with us. Thank you so much. Wonderful speakers, and thank you so much to all participants. Goodbye. Have a great week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.